Christina, how many did you say were on?
I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 or 11, I believe.
Who's on the phone? That ends in 2161. Oh, is that Shonda?
No, Shonda's registered for. I'm not.
It is me.
Oh.
I am registered for, and I'm on the phone. Sorry.
Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that would make 10.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I think I've got what I need to run. That is working. The live stream should be working. And everybody, yep. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Okay. Rudy, I think we can go. I just want to record. Okay, it's recording. I will give you control now.
Okay. Well, I want to call the meeting to order at 6:01. And Christina, could I get you to do a voice recall or roll call?
Yes.
Just say their name and then they can say here.
Okay. Counselor Goulet. You'll have to unmute. Counselor Goulet, Max, you're here.
Here.
Mayor Patch.
Here.
Counselor Moore.
Here.
Counselor Kolb. Jason, can you hear me?
I don't think he can.
Oh, mute audio. I don't want to. Jason, can you hear me? No? Well, I know he's present. We can see him, but he can't talk.
Okay. He can hear everything we're saying though, do you?
I can't confirm that.
I don't think so, because I had to click on some speakers in the lower left-hand corner in order for me to hear you.
Right, so if you can't hear us talk.
Hey, Rudy.
There we go.
Oh, can you hear us, Jason?
I can't hear nothing.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I'm turning on my volume and everything else, and I don't have no sound.
Okay.
Weird.
Your audio, maybe it's muted.
My audio? I mean, in the settings?
On your top right corner, there's a little blue box. You just mouse over it. There's like 3 little.
Guess I don't see what blue box you're talking about.
So Rudy, if you can hear me, have Jason call one of the phone numbers like Shonda is doing and dial in from his phone.
Okay.
And then his voice will be heard over the phone.
What's the phone number?
Hang tight.
Yeah, because I
got the options button.
There. She just brought it up on the screen. Can you see it?
So if you call one of these phone numbers,
The 1318 number or 1646. Okay.
either one of these, and then it'll ask for the meeting ID.
I'm gonna hang up,
And
Jason.
the password. Okay.
I'm gonna pause the recording.
Sure.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just
Password.
you have not entered any numbers. Please re-enter the meeting password followed by pound. Welcome to Zoom.
Is he in, Christina?
I can't tell.
Now, there are 11 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. You have been put on hold by the
Okay, Jason. Okay, good. There's gonna be a little feedback because you got your laptop on and your phone. So you may have to,
Mute isn't Matt. He can mute his laptop
yeah,
or
okay. So we know Jason is here, so I'll keep going on roll call then, Rudy. And then for staff, we have myself and Mike Schwanke is here, right? Where are you, Mike? Hold on, unmute. There we go. Nope. Now can I hear you?
How about now?
There we go. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, Shonda, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and then Jace, are you here still?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. And then we have Steve Rose and Gail Leverson from Widseth. Can you guys both see and
I
hear
am
us?
here, you bet.
Awesome. Okay. Rudy, I think we've got everybody.
okay. I'd like to dispense with the pledge, being how this is a work session.
Okay,
So we'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
you just need to unmute your
Just-
line to move, to make a motion and a second, if you will, please.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay,
All those in favor? You need to do roll call again.
okay. Rudy,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Paige,
Aye.
Max.
Aye.
Okay,
All right, motion passes. Okay, old business, city building design and redesigns.
okay. I'm gonna turn it over to Steve and Gail. If we can start with the liquor store.
Sure. Okay, you've got the liquor store. Good evening, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. You've got the liquor store up there. I'm gonna move my people out of the way. And this isn't a whole lot different than the original, the draft that I sent a couple of weeks ago.
Hey, Steve,
Yeah,
you are kind of really hard to hear.
okay, let's see here.
If you get closer to your computer, it's a little it's a little better,
Okay, how's that?
much better.
Okay. I gotta thank you, Christina, for calling me Saint Stephen Rose on my name here. Back to the report. Okay, so it's the same as what everyone has been able to see for the last couple of weeks. I did a couple of things since that original draft, and that was I did a code review. And the code review brought up a couple of items that were deficient in the building, most likely since it was built. Now, that isn't to say that it was built incorrectly. It was just not built with a code official inspecting it. And I don't think you have a code official that inspects things nowadays, do you?
No, we do not.
Right. Now, because I'm a licensed architect and because we're a licensed professional services company, we do need to follow codes and ensure that everything we do follows the code. So that's why I included the two items that I found to be deficient in the building in my report. They're near the end of the report. As you keep on scrolling, you'll find them. And they have to do with, there we go. So there's the two items that came up have to do with the occupancy of the building. They look at the two different things that are going on in the building as different occupancy types. The liquor store is a retail mercantile. The bar is a restaurant bar. And they look at the way those are used as being different uses. And the code requires certain types of firewalls essentially between certain uses. And there's a chart in the code book that says when you have, in this case, it's an A occupancy and I think there's a B occupancy for the retail, you need to have a 2-hour firewall separating it, or M occupancy for mercantile, I'm sorry. Now the building is set up pretty easily to do that. There is already a wall there. It's a matter of making the doors that are in that wall of the right type and to complete the wall right on through the building. The opening that's there now is the opening that goes through from you've got in the picture there, from the kitchen into the retail space. If that were a continuous wall, you would have that continuous separation between the two different occupancies. What we would have to do is just make sure that wall is rated at a 2-hour rating. Typically, that means putting 5/8 sheetrock, multiple layers on both sides of the wall, continuous from the floor all the way up to the roof sheathing. You know, there's a little bit that needs to be done in order for that to happen, but it can happen in your building pretty easily. Is there any questions on that item?
This is Shonda. I do have one question. You could also put a door there. So let's say you could have access back and forth for the employees, as long as it's got it's a fire door.
Yep.
Correct?
That's correct. I didn't show it that way because I showed the least expensive way to do this. And that's why it's just a solid wall. That and the fact that you have a stainless steel sink right at the intersection of the wall there, and I kind of went around that edge of that sink so the sink wouldn't have to be moved. So the way I've got, if you don't go to the floor plan, but if you were to look at the floor plan, you'd see the way to get from the one side of the building to the other is through the vestibule right now. That isn't the best, but it's the cheapest. The other item has to do with the number of occupants that's calculated for the building, and thus the number of plumbing fixtures that are required for the building. Right now, the building just barely meets the requirements with the 2 bathrooms that it has. So everything's fine. What happens is once we put the addition onto the building, now we need more plumbing fixtures, and it's short of plumbing fixtures. So in the floor plan, you'll see that I've added one unisex bathroom because I did the calculations and it came to, I don't recall right off the top of my head, like you're allowed 40 occupants per water closet, and with the additional space, we came to 41. Now, a real stringent code official would say, you've exceeded the number of occupants per water closet, you should have 2. But if 40 is the number and we came out in our calculation at 41, we're only 1 person over. I'm of the opinion you let it go. Some code officials wouldn't do that. The other way to get around it is to reduce your square footage to get down to where there's only 40 additional occupants, and then you're going to be only required to have 1 water closet. I only showed 1. I'm thinking we're going to have, if this were to be reviewed by a code official, he'd let it fly. So those were the 2 items, the restrooms and the separation wall. Any questions on the restrooms?
So just adding square footage for the retail side or the off sale side, you would still have that takes into consideration for occupancy.
They look at the total number of occupants for each side. Like right at the top here now, it shows the amount of square footage in each of the areas, the bar, the accessory mechanical, the retail, the storage, etc. And each one of those has a square foot per occupant. Obviously, the bar has the most at 134. Accessory spaces use the highest square footage per occupant, so there's only 3 counted there. The retail only shows 10 occupants, but once I add the square footage on that we are adding for the addition, that occupant amount grew to, like, instead of 10, it was like 21. So thus the number all grew, and then when you go down to the next group of numbers, you divide everything all out, and the number of fixtures required, it goes up. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, so now the other areas that we added on to this report were the budget breakdowns in the architecture, then in the mechanical, and then in the electrical. And then at the very end, I did a total of everything to come up with what the overall cost was for everything.
You want me to scroll to that page, Steve?
Well, should we do that? Should we go? We could do that. Go to,
Okay.
go to the very end.
Okay. Oh, this one?
But let me give this one as an example. So this is the mechanical breakdown. In the mechanical verbiage, he comes up with 5 different areas of recommendation, and he lightly describes them here, and then he gives a dollar amount for each one. Each one of those recommendations has a dollar figure that came to a total. When we get to the very bottom, you'll see that I grabbed his total number and stuck it in my calculation for the overall cost. But if you're wondering ever what those numbers are, you can back up in the document and go to that section and see how that came up, how he came up with the 75,500.
Okay.
Same thing applies to the electrical. He did a breakdown as well. And then I used his total in my final calculation. So the very last page is the cost report of the entire project. So there's the electrical. They had 6 items that came up to 108,000. Okay. So what I did here is I showed a 20 by 54 building addition, and I gave a range. Now these range numbers are numbers that I came up with through the RS Means catalog. They're a company that does estimating booklets, and that's what professionals use to determine cost per square foot on any given project type. And I looked in that the RS Means book, and through looking at various building types and similar types of construction, a building of this type of construction of this size could range anywhere from $1.54 a square foot up to $186. Excuse me, $185.
Like $1.54.
$1.54. $154 per square foot to $186 per square foot. And this building addition is 1,080 square feet. So that's how you get come across the columns there, and that's where you get the price range for that building addition. The next line is just a brief description of what that entails. Now inside that addition, we have a walk-in cooler, and that has a different price per square foot. So I added that through. That comes to around $60,000 to $69,000 based on that book for that size cooler. Now the remodeling, the store is already there, but we're going to come in with new finishes, new ceilings, new floors, new light fixtures, variety of things. So the remodeling cost per square foot is much less, but we are doing some work in that area, and that comes to that 85 to 137. The next couple lines are the mechanical estimate and the electrical estimate. And there's going to be some site work. We know that there's going to be some pavement and some curb along the edge of the building. There might be some sidewalk repair. There's going to be digging for the septic maybe and some other work. I don't know what that site work's going to be. So I just threw in a placeholder of $50,000. It might be more, it might be less, it might be almost nothing at all. But I figured I better put something in there because there will be some type of site work. So all of that came to a total of $547,000 to $642,000 in there somewhere. That's the range where I expect this building, this work to be. I also showed our design fees to do that building and to provide architecture, structure, mechanical, electrical, civil, and surveying work. All of that comes to about 10% of that cost. So I picked a number in the middle and used that as our fee number, and that's where I put the fee in. Again, it's just an estimate because it could go anywhere, but I used the middle of the range. So that's it for the liquor store.
Can I go over the floor plan real quick, Stephen?
Sure.
Hopefully it's gonna load.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might not. Okay. There it goes.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, let me see if this still works. There we go.
And hit the plus button a couple times, maybe. We'll zoom in a little. In the bottom right.
Yep, hang on.
There you go. Okay, good. So the dark heavy lines are the new construction. The light colored lines are everything that's existing that's already there. So in the program, that when we talked about what is necessary, there's a couple of things. There are about 3 items. There was a need to about double the size of the retail space. There was a need to double the size of the cooler. And there was a need to move the office out away from the kitchen to clear up some traffic patterns and to provide a break room area for employees. Now there again, I showed that new bathroom that's required because of the additional square footage. There was one other thing that was, once we added all this retail and new cooler space, and if the retail was run in a fashion where you could actually put more product in the retail space, you would need less storage space in that case. So we left only one of the storage rooms where before you had two. I'll give you a little detail on some of the items. Now in this retail, or in the overall layout, there was talk of deliveries being done on the north side of the building rather than the former east side of the building. So there's a large door enter off of the north so that the delivery trucks could bring product in and bring it directly to the retail space and directly to the new cooler. With the deliveries being done at the north, now the former delivery entry, the east entry, could now be the employee entry. So employees can come in, go to the break room, drop their coats, their purse, whatever, hit the restroom, get ready for work, and away they go to work, whether it's the retail side or the bar side. It makes no difference. Now that the deliveries are not being done in the back could be used for employee parking. The bar area hasn't changed at all. The area that's one other change was we're taking off the porte-cochere, the roof area that at the front of the building. We reduced it so it's just enough to, congregate, cover the entrance before you go in. Take off all the rest of it so you won't have vehicles driving under it and hitting it. The one area I did not show much change is that the existing kitchen. That area is kind of up in the air, and that was something that we can determine once we get into the design. The kitchen's gaining space because the office is moving away. And by gaining that space and getting the people from walking to the kitchen, the space that's available now can be more efficient. Right now, we could leave all the walls as they are, and the kitchen can operate as it does today. And the office being gone, now the kitchen has all the storage that they need without changing any walls. And that's what I left it at now, because that's the cheapest, easiest way to get basically what you want. The downside of that is anybody that needs to walk from one side of the building to the other side has to go through the vestibule. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. But it's better than having people walk through the kitchen. There is a possibility that if wanted, we could put a hallway through right across the back wall of the men's room. And it could hook onto the other hallway, and that could be an employee hallway to allow people to get from the bar side to the retail side without having to go through the vestibule or through the kitchen. The downside of that is it starts taking some of that space that the kitchen gained and starts taking it away from that. It also would require some moving of existing fixtures in the kitchen around a little bit and doing some changes there. And again, there's more changes, more money. Basically, that's what we're talking about on this plan. That I kind of went fast. Did I lose anybody along the way?
No.
Any questions?
Yeah, it's Max.
Hi, Max.
On the since it's the new cooler takes up so much space, they're still counting that just as the same square footage, correct? Like for the water closets and.
Correct.
Even though obviously it's not something that can be occupied.
Well, in the fashion that Shauna and I discussed, it would be a retail open cooler, meaning that the customers can walk in and grab their large cases and purchase right straight from the cooler.
Okay.
So it is actually, this cooler is retail space. The other cooler is accessed only through the existing doors.
All right.
So would we be leaving the existing cooler there?
Most likely. So the existing cooler now is used for 6-packs of wine, smaller size packages of beers, and any of those smaller things. The new cooler is for larger quantities, case goods. The idea being you can get the beer that's now being stored in the storage room and in the hallway and put it into the coolers, and you move it once and you're done.
Okay. And my other concern, I don't know, having a north entrance, I just fear wintertime.
That's right. And you are in Blackduck, Minnesota, and it is north and northwest wind coming right in that door. Now, Shauna, you can tell us how often are deliveries done and how long is that door open?
Well, the hope is that we do this with a pallet size door, so that
Okay.
they're bringing those pallets in, they're bringing it all in, and it would shorten the time. Actually, our back door probably every day of the week, and then it's open 3 hours because they have to stack it out off the pallets, and they have to bring it in individually. If they did it
Okay.
this way, they could just come into the cooler, drop it off, and those big pallets, just pallet jack them in, and then they'll be, in and out in 45 minutes.
Sure.
I
That
do
looks like
the
that would
idea.
work a lot better.
I do like the idea. Just the whole north side.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we could maybe move it move it to the east and put it. You could come in. They could make deliveries directly from outside right into the east side of the cooler, but then they still have to bring their other product to bring it into the retail space.
Yeah, no, that's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Kind of is. I guess I didn't mention, I moved the checkout location to in front of the window because that window is kind of an odd place for trying to stack product for sale anyway. So I made that the back side of the checkout, and the checkout now has control of the door and being able to view the entire retail space.
Yeah, that reduces blind spots. That's good.
Yeah. Shonda, have you got any comments on any of this or questions?
I don't really have any questions. We kind of had a conversation earlier today. This is not, exactly perfect. It's not like
No.
We're going to be. There's more work that has to be done on it, and we
Right.
have more discussion with Steve and get. So,
Yeah.
but it's kind of the idea of what we'd like to see.
Yeah, this is as much as I knew at the time and something that I could say is X number of square feet and we could base a budget off of.
I think overall it's a good start. The up in the air with where the office is now. I think, I would like to see the kitchen get that extra space. Absolutely.
They could use it. Okay. Well, we can move on to one of the other programs if you'd like.
Maintenance building,
Okay,
I
let's
guess.
do that one.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the program for the maintenance building is the maintenance is the first portion, the police is the second portion. Then there's the other requirements that will occur in the building. And then at the bottom, there's the area and goes on to the costs of that. So basically this got to be a 10,000 square foot building. In my mind, it got a little bit bigger than I originally thought, but that's got all the things in it that Mike and I talked about. In a steel framed pre-engineered building, we got a cost range of $146 a square foot to $167 a square foot. On a 10,000 square foot building, came to 1.5 to $1.8 million. That's a big number. It includes all the things that you see in the next line, except for some site work, which again, I don't know how much site work we're going to need to do to this. We have a big empty lot right now. I did look at another option. Rather than a steel framed building, I said, well, what if it's a wood framed pole type structure, still pre-engineered with metal panels? Again, all the rest of it being the same and the structure being different. It came to $96 to $137 a square foot. That still came into $1 million to $1.5 million, somewhere in there.
Steve, what's the price difference, or maybe they don't do anymore, is the precast concrete buildings? Is that way out of this?
That would have been more than the steel building.
It would have, okay.
Yeah.
But it's still priced the way it is right now, I didn't know.
Yeah, the concrete, now that's a really nice building too, but that would take another step and go up the other direction. And my thoughts were, well, let's not go there yet. Let's go there. Let's go where it's somewhat affordable here. So again, on these buildings, I put a design fee in for all of these disciplines, and I picked the middle of the road number. And I still did it off the steel building, and I came up to a dollar figure. This is, again, way early on, high level view. There's a lot of detail, lots to be figured out here. But those are some estimated costs of what it could be if it was built in one of these two fashions. Any other questions?
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Do we have financing on this lined up, or has anybody, I mean, have we begun to look at some of how we're paying for it yet?
Well, that's why I had Gail get on the call, Max, so when we are done going through Steve's proposal, Gail can maybe give us some start on discussion, and Shonda's got a couple things she'd like to say too. So if we could maybe get through the last proposal, then we can touch on that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Now on the city hall, we have all the different spaces that the city hall needs, and came up with this listing of all the attributes and the rooms. And then I put together a chart putting together all the square footage that would require to put all these rooms in place. And it came to about 2,500 square feet. So through our discussions, I guess there's a couple of buildings in town that could meet that square footage. Or you could build a new building at that square footage. So I don't know what those buildings are like or how they could be modified to fit a city hall. But what I did do is I said, well, what if you got a building that's fairly close and you only needed light remodeling? It could be, $45 to $68 a square foot at 2,500 square feet. That could be 112,000 to 170,000, depending upon how much work that building that you get is going to require. I said, well, what if the building required a lot of remodeling, moving walls, maybe some structural items, and okay, that could almost double. So I went, it's about $80 a square foot to $121 a square foot. Yeah, you're going to be remodeling somewhere in the $200 to $300 range, $1,000 range. The third alternative was if you could buy a building or a lot in town that would either need to be torn down or built new, and stuck to this description at the bottom here, it could be $187 a square foot up to $231 a square foot or that totals out to 467 up to 577. Again, not the numbers that we're talking about for like we just did for the maintenance building, but again, this is a lot smaller square footage. It's more finished square footage, but it's less square footage overall. Again, and then on the bottom, there's the design fees if we're gonna do that building, what they could be for that. So. Any questions on that one?
No, I don't.
I have none.
Okay. So there's the two program and their estimated costs, and then the facility study and its estimated costs. So the second two were a little bit different than the first one, the liquor store, because the liquor store was more pronounced. It had exactly what needed to be done. We did a full study on that as an existing building. The other two are buildings that don't yet exist, and we're just doing a program and a estimated cost per square foot. All right. Where do you want to go next, Christina?
I guess before we get through, have Gail chime in, I'd like to get some input from Shonda and Mike and Jace on the reports, just so that the council's involved in their input.
Well, I might as well start with Shonda.
Okay.
Okay, what kind of information are you looking for, Christina?
I guess, Shonda, from your perspective, I would like to let you, I mean, you already shared with the council that yes, the layout is a good start and everything. You and I were discussing, you know, the dollar amount this morning. Maybe some of your insight as to, you know, where we are 5 and 10 years down the line. Do you want to share that now, or do you want to?
Well, I did a little, just some quick figuring, using very conservative numbers, using our sales from 2018 rather than last year. Last year we had a really excellent year, but I used 2018 numbers and talked to some other cities who added on and or have new builds, and they said that when they looked at it, the expectation was 10 to 15% over sales, 10 to 15% more sales that you're going to expect at the end of your first year. They've had better numbers, but again, I wanted to be conservative. With that number, it was about $100,000 more in gross revenue just for the off-sale side. Once we got up and running, so you're thinking $100,000 more, and that's conservative, that you're going to sell, you're going to gross for the off-sale side. The good thing is that we put in a kitchen per se, and if we get the extra space, that will also drive our on-sale sales higher also. The expectation is probably that. I can't really, I don't have any 2018 numbers as we just put in the food, but have been up until March doing very well with the food portion of it too. So.
Well, those are, you're saying, Shonda, based on 2018 numbers, that percentage, 10 to 15% more in business would gross 100,000 is what you're thinking?
Yes, gross $100,000 more.
Okay. Okay. Mike or Jace, input?
Jay's here. I don't have a whole lot of input other than, yeah, like Rudy said, that's a lot. That was 3 to 4 times more than I thought something like that was going to run, but I'm not in that business. So
Okay.
that's what all I got on it.
Mike here, if you can hear me.
Yep.
Not really a whole lot of input other than sticker shock, looking at it quite a bit more than what I was anticipating. But again, like Jay said, I'm not in that business. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little out of touch with the prices, so we'll just have to wait and see if we move forward, what it's going to start shaping up like. Maybe it'll be less.
Okay. Thank you,
I'll
guys.
share a little bit that I shared with Mike on Friday. We just bid out a wood framed, well, it's a whole barn storage building. It's no insulation. It does have a concrete slab, but no finishes, no insulation, no interior whatsoever. That came to $65 a square foot. So in your square footage, a building that doesn't have virtually anything inside is still going to be $600,000 to $700,000 without any insulation, finishes, finished areas, plumbing, any of that kind of thing, based off of that bid that we just did a week ago.
Okay.
So even if we went to the wood framed lowest number at $96 a square foot, and that 96 is giving us about $30 a square foot to spend on some insulation and finishes and some other things, it still becomes $1 million building. And I'm not sure how much of those things you can get for $30 a square foot. So that's why I'm more comfortable with the steel frame building with the steel frame building numbers than I am on the low end of the wood frame building numbers.
Mike is, or I guess maybe you don't know, but is a 6-inch concrete slab heavy enough for our grader and the heavy equipment that we're running through there? Okay.
Yeah, that should be sufficient.
And if you got good soils there and a good base underneath it, you put the right reinforcement on it, it'll be just fine.
What about the total size of the building? I mean, does it have to be that size? Because we would still have the old garage that's sitting there now. I mean,
There's a thought.
I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, yes, it would be ideal to have everything in one spot, but
Mike here. I guess I had thought that maybe we would look at selling the old building, the current public works shop, and selling the old LEC center as well. I don't think that we want to put any more money at all into those buildings. So, I mean, we're looking at kind of a 60+ year investment here. If we're going to do it, I think we got to do it right one time and just be done with it.
well put.
And just to add to that, that's some pretty good square footage to add to the tax roll too.
That could go back, you mean, Rudy? Yeah,
Yes, yeah, where we could start collecting taxes on it again,
right. And that is, that's still business district, so you could put something there. Well, if that's the case, if that's it, Rudy, I guess I'd like to get maybe some quick feedback from Gail. I know I asked you to step in on this kind of late in the game, Gail, but what do you see? What kind of options come up at the top of your head, obviously we've got an enterprise fund, but then we also have couple of essential services that they would have to be funded. What kind of options are there, if you know of any, you could share with the council?
Well, I called a bunch of granting and funding organizations today.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
There, that's better.
Okay, I'll move this way. But I kind of sent you a little summary of that, Christina,
Okay.
over email. So if you wanted to put that on the also.
Okay.
But you know, this is a project that's really moving project, so it'll keep on moving. These aren't written in stone either, but I brought some options to your attention today to kind of give you an idea what the cost would be. I contacted at least 5 of them today, maybe more, but there were 2 that are available right now today through USDA Rural Development, which you already know. But looking at the Public Works building, there were 2 programs that we could piggyback on to make it the cheapest debt services we could for you. And we could use that Red Leg program and then use the community facility program together. And so with the Red Leg program, we'd work with a utility company that could get money to re-lend to you. And that would be money that would be 0% interest for 10 years. It wouldn't do the whole debt, but it would do part of it. You know, and that's a savings, of course, because you're just paying on the cost of the building. And then you could finance with the rest of it with the community facility program. And that would offer a longer term than 10 years. So that would make the payments a little bit lower for you. And that one does 2.375% interest. So it's not a bad interest rate. And it would go like 30 years. And I think one of the things with financing buildings, public buildings, that you can only go to 450,000 for total debt to avoid a referendum or bonding costs.
Okay.
And so I just used that number right out of the sky. I knew it was a little close to the liquor store. It wasn't quite close to the Public Works, but you know, it's all still moving. So in example, I put the $450,000 project cost there. I financed it with the 2 loans, 50% each, doing $225 each. And the first one, you know, had debt service of $1,875 a month for 10 years. And the second one would have debt service of $875 a month for 30 years. And so that would be $2,750 a month you'd be paying for a Public Works building just for the first 10 years. And then it would go down to $875 a month for the next 20 years. And that would be a much smaller building, of course, or maybe there's something that is changeable or movable, but a $450,000 debt. And then they could do a grant of up to $50,000 for a piece of equipment that would be used at the Public Works building. You know, so I'm sure that there's equipment that always wears out that you might use, and that might be an easy way to do that at the same time. They usually don't, you do the grants for building costs because they require so much overhead that it's, you don't get that much of a benefit out of it by the time you pay all the Davis-Bacon wages on all the environmental work on it. But that's the recommendation. And then moving down to the liquor store, that was a little harder to finance because it's not considered an essential community facility. And I even brought up the fact that it's an essential service in this COVID. No, come on, this is essential. They said, well, no, it's not. So anyway, looking at that, you couldn't use the same financing programs for this one because of that eventual use of the building. And so just looking at saying, okay, we're going to do a bond sale with a public finance advisor. I looked at doing one bond sale at $450. You'd have a little issuance cost, about $12,000 on top of that. But another recent city got 2.6% interest on it. And that would go for 15 years. And so that carries a monthly debt service of $1,800 for 15 years. You know, so that's like 2 different options. I used the same number in both so that you can kind of go, oh, I can see the difference now and what the debt service would be, the monthly cost would be to your budget. except that usually when you do a bond sale, you do semi-annual payments. You know, and so you're paying interest one part of the year, the other part of the year. It's usually like February and October. But I just thought the monthly would give you some number to go with that. You know, and if you decide to do all your stuff, it's like, hey, we want to do it all. We're going to bond for it. We're totally comfortable taking on debt because we know these buildings are going to last a long time. Then what we do is we just add on the costs. And then there's a debt per capita debt limit of about $5,000 per person. So we'd figure out what your debt limit is already in the city of Blackduck, and then how this would add on to that. And then we would just finance it with that mechanism. But I have to say, all the other funding agencies, the ones I talked to today, I talked to FEMA because of the public safety aspect of the police building, or possibly a storm shelter. And they haven't got their new money for this year yet, but they might be getting some in. I talked to Blandon. They're hesitant because of the COVID right now, but things can change. I talked to Triple RB. That didn't quite work out because they have a different area. I talked to Bremer Foundation, US Bank, and even Deerwood Bank, because a lot of the banks do have foundations or they have to spend money on community needs. And so I've been successful in that before, talking banks out of some of their profits for community donation. So with that, you know, I thought I'd just open it up for questions, see if you had any thoughts on that. Or...
Gail, is the Nielsen Foundation an option for municipalities?
It's an option for the city of Bemidji.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That municipality. I haven't gotten any further than that. There, you know, there's never a wasted call in funding, Christina.
I know.
And so that's what this, you know, when I end up with this, because sometimes funding agencies have different things that pop up at different times of the year. And so you have to remain kind of fluid. And so I keep on moving on options. I keep it in my file cabinet up here. And when something comes up that sounds like I make the calls right away, make sure that, you know, if there's an option here that we can take advantage of it right away and add it to the mix. So those all things all may come to fruition, or a couple of them yet.
Okay.
One question they asked me with the liquor store one, they looked at it more of as a business loan, you know, because you're making money off of it. It's a business. And so they asked how many jobs that you're there right now and how many jobs you might increase to with this expansion. And that's a good question.
Yeah, I think we touched on that with the expansion of the off sale. Right now, we have like part-time people that work in the off sale, and then they share some responsibilities to the kitchen and the bartenders when the on sale is open. But in this case, with the layout that Steve has presented, we'd need dedicated staff over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought you would probably need more people. So are you like at 10 full-time jobs right now, or less or more? Or?
Equivalents?
Yeah. That's a hard question.
That's a hard question. I'd have to calculate out the hours, but I don't think it would get up that high right now.
Oh, okay. So you'd add, I'm sure, kitchen.
Now, unlike the maintenance building, was that the $1,800 a month debt service? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's the top scenario here. Yeah. And so that one I could use more facility, more public money on it because it had the safety feature. So it's an essential community facility. And so that would be $2,750 a month for the first 10 years, and then $875 a month for the next 20 years, because I'm using two funding mechanisms there. One of them is 0% interest, which is always, it's really attractive to pay 0% interest, but it can only go 10 years. So you can't really do your whole project and pay it off in 10 years. And so that's why I went with half and half.
So that's kind of like a depreciation rate, like
No, it's like buying a house or a car or something where you are paying higher interest at first and you're decreasing the interest every month and you're increasing your equity every month so that at the end your last payments are very little interest and most
Right,
principal.
but like, you know how some businesses get to depreciate things over time. I'm wondering, is that something like, can cities do that too?
Oh, I think, do you do that, Christina? I think.
Yeah,
you do.
we do
Yeah.
have a depreciation schedule, a fixed asset policy,
Mhm.
and based on certain criteria, there's buildings, there's infrastructure, there's movable property. They all have a certain life expectancy, and at the end of each financial year, we review those assets, and the Miller McDonald actually depreciates everything in every fund for us. So yes, these would depreciate, but they'd also gain value to the city overall as an asset, but then each year they'd lose some value, if that answers your question, Max.
Yeah, I just wanted it out there on the record so everybody's understanding
Yep,
how something like that gets funded.
right.
Yeah, building, I think they use 39 years depreciation schedule, and equipment is less depending on how long-term the equipment is. It could be like 7 years, it could be 15 years.
Right. Gail, one of the questions I had was many cities, when they're looking at redoing property and buildings, they're moving towards one large building that houses all entities. Are there different funding options when cities move to something like this, where you have your city hall and your community room and your public works all encased in the same building? Do your funding options grow or do they reduce?
I think you'd be past that $450,000 debt limit pretty
Okay.
quickly.
Oh,
on
yes.
that size. So then you'd be into the bonding department quickly.
Okay.
You still would have about the same opportunities for grant funding. You know, it still would be say, okay, what is the use of the building? So like if you did a community facility that really wasn't a city hall building or a required city building, like a community facility, you could touch into small cities grants, you know, and look that way. But for that, they're more interested in, okay, how's the city residents going to use this? Is it going to be an event center? Is it going to be a gymnasium? Is it going to be an ice arena or something fun for everybody in the city? You know, so that's what they're more interested in. You know, the FEMA money will be there, whether it's one big building or a smaller building. You know, if you decide to do a storm shelter or decide to do, you know, that safety aspect, you know, that's what I'm kind of selling them on.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the options do increase if that combined building is an option. Did I misunderstand you?
No, I think what I mean to say is the options are still the same.
Okay, thank you.
They're just simple as can be. It depends on what you plan on using the facility for, and you're probably going to have the same amount of square footage for that use. And so that's what we'd base that grant on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Christina, where are we at? Like, just one of the questions or things she said is our debt to population ratio right now. You know where we're at there?
I do not have those numbers, Rudy. I can probably pull something up by the time we have our May meeting though, because Ashley will be around to discuss the 19 audit. So I can try to get something together in the next couple of weeks.
You know, one thing that came up in this conversation was that old public works building that you think you can sell.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that's worth? I mean, that's money to put towards a new project right away.
Right.
Any thoughts or?
Mike?
Yeah.
You know, off the top of my head, 30 grand, somewhere in there maybe.
Okay.
The old LEC, that one's really hard to say. 5 grand.
Oh, okay.
If we could
10
give it
grand.
to somebody so they could
Yeah,
just start
it's-
paying taxes.
Oh, yeah.
It will
Pretty
probably
much.
it will probably cost more to demo the building and get it cleaned up for maybe, I mean, it could become a brownfield project so that it's clean and ready to go for somebody else than to sell, just because. And I don't know the history. Somebody else that's lived here longer than me probably knows the history of the old lumber yard, which is the old LEC, which is the other maintenance building. But that thing's been there. Rudy? Max?
Been there a long time.
Before your time, right?
So
Well, that
That might
building
be
was originally the ambulance building that the Public Works is using right now. So it's been there a long time, been added on, and yeah.
okay. So maybe that answers your question, Gail. Probably not enough. It would probably be more in the city's best interest to get it ready for someone else more than to try to sell the buildings itself.
Doesn't, I was thinking if it was worth a couple $100,000, it cuts down your debt on the new building right away. One thought might be is if you're building, if you wanted to combine everything in one building, I wondered if it would be cheaper to build it all, but it might be, you know, that's Steve's question. It might be based on the square footage, just as the funding was. You know.
Right. Okay.
It almost sounds to me like if we did a community room or a community building, rather, we would probably get better funding as a standalone than if it was combined with the city hall and everything else.
Well, you have a lot of buildings going on right now, so I think you got to figure out what's the priority for our city. What do we really need first? What are we going to get the most bang use out of? You know, what's really going to protect you for a long time, and then we'll go with that one at a time, maybe.
Yeah, I think the liquor store obviously is a whole separate animal, but I definitely see the value in the expansion option on the off sale. Shonda's brought some good numbers for the council to consider, and I think it's a project that would definitely leave a legacy and really help the city on its own.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I mean, Public Works is something that's needed. We can't continue housing our equipment outside and expect the same results and lifespan out of equipment when it's sitting outside rusting.
I'm just doing that debt service on the liquor store expansion down here as compared with your sales, and that's really nice. But $1,800 a month it's $22,000 a year in payments, and you're adding, $100,000 a year in new gross sales. So it basically is kind of a support itself. It's a business, so that is a whole different animal. It is what it is. So
right.
Yeah. How about the remodels? Are you interested in those at all? Because Steve had some nice numbers with the remodel. I think it was with the city hall option. They were a little cheaper per square foot.
I guess my personal opinion is it's still a pretty large number and I truly believe we need to focus on Public Works. Just right now we're losing equipment every day because of how old it is, and there's no sense in buying new equipment if we don't have a place to house it.
I'm in the same line of thought.
I know Christina wants a new office, but we could find a little spot in the Public Works building for her, I suppose.
I'm fine. I'll take Jason's
Kind of grader or something.
I'll take Jason's office. As long as I've got computers, I think I probably can handle it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. Well, Gail, thank you for doing the quick stuff here. Appreciate this.
No, but I'll keep it on my radar, and we'll call the Nielsen Foundation again, and we'll call wherever we think that'll be a good idea for you. I think having this good discussion on what the priorities are and how much they cost is really healthy.
So Gail, what is why does the Nielsen place, what does Bemidji, other than way more people and what that?
It's just
Explain that to
the
me.
benefactor, the guy that started the foundation, his last name is Nielsen. And that's his money and that's where he's from and that's where he limits his funding to.
Okay, makes sense.
It's like the Blandon Foundation likes Itasca County. They prefer Itasca County. I pointed out the fact that you've been to leadership training there and all that stuff. And that ranks well with them. It helps. So sometimes granting is one of those little things that you bite off little pieces at a time. You just can't come in and order it off the menu. You have to, I work in making friends with them and selling them the project little by little. So it might take a little longer. But that's where it is. Yeah.
Does any of the other counselors have any questions for Gail or Steve at all?
I don't have any questions at this time.
I have no questions as well.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, that sounds good.
So my only ending on this point, Rudy, that I would like to everybody know is to ask Steve what our next steps are.
Well, from my point of view, I think the next steps are the ball's in your court to decide, of the 3 projects, which do you think is the most feasible, and do you want to continue with one of them or 2 of them or none of them or what have you? At this point, we've completed our original contract, and until you hire us to do the next step, we'll be sitting on the sidelines waiting.
Okay. Sounds like there'd be a lot more discussion we have to have yet.
Yeah, these are big numbers, all of them. So, yeah.
This is a good focus to have on a work session, though. This is a good idea, Christina.
We're always available to answer any questions. If you get into a discussion about each of these, just if you got questions, send them our way. We'll help you out with whatever we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time tonight, both
Oh, you bet.
Steve and Gail.
Yeah.
Thank
bet.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you for inviting me.
All right, Christina, do you want to move on to where we at here? Do we need to talk about the golf cart shed or?
We don't have anything really to report. It's just old business and hold on a second. I thought Gail was coming in, but I guess she's leaving. Okay. Just so that the council's aware, we're just waiting on Mother Nature here for property to dry out by the golf course to start moving. At a brief conversation with Kevin Erpelding today, and it sounds like our contractor's wanting to get trusses ordered so that, because they take a while, so we might be starting to move forward on getting materials ordered so that when the ground is ready, we can start moving forward. So it's pretty much where that's at, unless somebody has any specific questions.
I know, I believe this week I'm going to go down there with Kevin in the morning and help him do some measuring and put some stakes out, probably Wednesday or Thursday or something. But
okay.
I know Garrett is just waiting for the phone call from Kevin to start bringing, basically when it dries up.
Sure. Okay. I tell you, if I could just go back really quick, I want to make one last comment on the city buildings, Rudy, if I may. When I invited Gail to this call today, I gave her the program reports that Steve had documented or drafted for the city, and what she asked is, do you have an order of importance or Are there any buildings that you really want to get done? And we kind of touched on that when we ended, but I really feel as though moving forward with the liquor store is it should be strongly considered by the council. And if we can find the right funding, that Public Works would also be strongly considered. Based on what Gail provided the council to look at tonight and the numbers that Shonda provided, I believe that the liquor store could fund its own debt, even on a really bad year, this being one of them. You know, we just need to keep looking for the correct funding for Public Works, but I think it's a movement that the council should really consider.
So that being said, do we have to get this funding that she's talking about, do we have to go through this engineer process that, I mean, or can we have somebody else design and build this for half the price, say? I mean, or do we have to go through them to get this funding? That
do we have to go through Gale and Widseth to get the funding?
No, do we have to go through that through Steve, the engineering process of all that to get that particular funding?
No, the city can choose to use whatever engineer they feel. However, you've already started a process to review the existing buildings and what is needed. Well, as he stated at the beginning of his presentation, on an architectural standpoint, you know, Widseth is going to provide full blueprints, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, the whole 9 yards included in that price. When the city gets to the point where they're ready to bid, yes, you're over that threshold where it would become much like an infrastructure project where you're going to go out for competitive bids on this project. So you're going to have a full blueprint, if you will, or plan set, like with an infrastructure project that a company's going to bid for.
Well, basically what we have to do then is what you're telling me, the way I understand it here, is we have to pay somebody $170,000 to draw up blueprints to have it bid, is basically where we're at.
Right now we are, unless we jump ship and take what we've learned from Widseth that we've already paid and go to another engineer, another architect.
Who's going to charge us probably pretty close to the same amount.
I guess my question is like, the cart shed, for example. I mean, why can't a contractor, why can't we have two contractors say, hey, this is what we want. This is our ideas. They come up with, we have the contractor come up with it and they bid it and another contractor bids it. I mean, do we have to go through an engineering company?
We don't have to go through an engineering company. You could go through just a basic architect if you wish, but you are going to need, as a city, you're going to need a full set of plans to go out for competitive bids. And you will need to, because you are a governing entity and the threshold of this project, both of them, all of them.
Sure. I don't know.
In other words, we can't just go up to like the lumber yard and say, hey, we need this much in concrete, or call up Lakes Country Concrete and have them pour a slab for us.
I don't have the thresholds in front of me, but I guarantee you guys, you're going to need, it's going to have to go out for competitive bids. It's going to have to be all statute driven.
Yeah, that's
too expensive. It's too, well, not expensive. It's just at that threshold. I look at it, and I told Mike today, you got to look at it as what we did with our water and sewer project on Summit in Maine. It's the same thing. It's just above ground instead of underneath. There is a process you have to do. You're utilizing taxpayers' dollars, regardless of your funding source, to pay for something. There's public hearings involved when you're at this threshold. That's why Gail touched on bonding and a referendum. When you get to a certain threshold, then there's a referendum that has to be on a ballot too. I'm not sure what those are at this point, but yeah, there's some legality involved that the city's going to have to address, and I'm going to have to dig into it more.
So, I mean, technically we could keep this public works building that we have. We could just go put up 50 by 200 pole building, cold storage for say. At least then we would have a place to store the equipment out inside. Would be better than what we have right now. We need to get equipment somehow, and it would be 1/10 of the price. I mean, we're building a cart shed. You know, it's granted it's only 10 feet tall, but that cart shed's only $40,000. I just don't see how $2 million is where it comes in at. I just have a tough time believing that. And that's where I think the engineers are like screwing us. I'm sorry.
I kind of agree with what Rudy's saying too. Mike has some needs on the building, but it's per how many stalls there are. There's got to be a cut and paste building exactly what he wants that the blueprint's already done for, and you throw a slab down, throw some spray foam installation up, and a couple water sources, and you kind of got your building.
I think we definitely have to have more discussion on it, but yeah, I don't know. $2 million just seems out of this world for what Mike wants or what Mike needs.
Can I chime in?
Yes.
I think we're all sitting in the same boat right now with the price on this thing. It seems crazy to all of us. I think the sticker shock of it. You know what I can say, like I said before, we got to all understand that we're making a long-term investment. We're not spending whatever we spend on a 3-year lifespan building. I mean, this is something that's going to be standing here after we're all long gone. So we need to take that into effect. But I do totally understand the sticker shock here, because I saw these numbers last week and I'm still in shock about them and still wondering if there's a way to bring them down somehow. It just, to me, I do still think that those numbers are ridiculously high, but again, I don't know all the exact procedure that we need to follow to do this the right way. If it has to be done that way, then it has to be done. I would like, and I have a couple calls out to look into just some alternative pricing, just to compare the numbers side by side. If we were, cash rich and had it sitting in the bank, and we had the ability to say, hey, put this building up for us right now, what would the price be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I don't know. It's a lot of money. My other option, or I guess I shouldn't say option, my other question here is, and this probably won't be a popular question, but do we not own the city liquor store basically for means of financing things that we need within the town?
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering where that profit is sitting. I mean, that money should be getting used for things that the city as a whole needs, and I'm not saying that it's not. It's just a curiosity thing that I was thinking when I heard earlier that the possible new addition is going to bring an extra $100,000 per year to the city. Well, you can make a payment on a building pretty fast when you're clearing an extra $100K a year.
I think that was gross, not, I'm sorry, Shonda, go ahead.
Yeah, please, let me interject there. That was gross. That's just additional sales. That is not profit.
Mm-hmm.
We generally transfer $60,000, $70,000 to the general fund from the liquor store. So that's you know, what our profits have been. We try, you know, earlier when I first started, we could only do like 30, and before that it was $10,000. But things are getting better. But yeah, that was just overall sales.
Shonda, can you touch real quickly on your conversation with Chris and Bagley? Do you have any insight as to what their liquor store cost when they built it?
Yeah, they spent 10 years ago about $1,600,000.
And it's just
for
off.
their new store.
That's just off sale?
Yes, that's just off sale.
And they move how much to their general fund now?
Generally, about 80,000, and they pay their own the payment, which is 60,000.
Okay.
A year.
Thank you.
Well, maybe we should build one like Bemidji for what was that like?
It was a lot.
That one was like that was millions of dollars.
Yeah. I want to say that was 3 million.
I think it was over 4 actually.
It was a lot.
Yeah,
It was a
I
lot
was
more.
joking.
Yeah, it was a lot.
So.
Well,
Well, I guess to answer, I'm sorry, Christina, to answer Mike's question, we are moving some money. We are moving money from the liquor store to the general fund. Plus, we are making some payments for the golf course, and hopefully she can continue at that rate, plus add more.
And aren't there certain rules about where the money can go from the liquor store? I mean, it can't just go right to, it has to go into our general fund first and then be dispersed, correct?
it would have to be that way. Yeah, that's just a state auditor point.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, you're right, Max. It can't. The liquor store fund couldn't pay the debt for the street department. It would have to get moved and paid. So yeah, it's just a line item.
I just have one more thing, and it's just kind of like a wrap up of the liquor store. A lot of the items that are on that report are kind of at an end of life. Our heating system is very, very old. If we put a better heating system in, we would reduce our monthly overhead. I feel just moving from electric to propane. I don't have any estimates, but I do know that people have done that and have saved a lot of money. Our monthly electric bill is outrageous. So, and then having more money to transfer, you know, being able to pay our debt off, if per se we do this quicker, I think those are some things eventually we're going to have to replace the heating anyway. The electrical, some of the codes we have to do. Yeah, that was it.
Well, I think we definitely need to look at the pond some more with the blueprint you have there, and there's definitely some good ideas. I think there's quite a few things there that we don't necessarily need to visit. Like, I think he had some like the bathroom costs and stuff. I mean, we just did all that work.
Yeah,
And
this bathroom here cost would be gone, but Shonda's right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in here that we've already addressed in this year's budget that would need to be addressed, and they're wrapped up in this now.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely think we need to continue this conversation for the liquor store and for the public works. We definitely need to continue on with this, try to figure something out.
With the liquor store, does that include also the sewer work that needs to be done too? I didn't see that
was that $50,000 figure he put in there
for the site work.
Yeah. For the plumbing?
I think it was on the bottom, Christina.
Oh, sorry. I'll move this.
I didn't know if that's what you were looking for or not.
There's all the electrical, lighting, kitchen, security. No, I'm sorry, I must have passed it up, but yeah.
No,
No, I know
it's
it's
right there. Site work, lump sum.
right.
I think that was kind of the plumbing and stuff was in there too, is the way I understood it.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So, any more on that? Okay.
No, do you have any more questions? Sorry. Does anyone have any questions for me on this at all?
I don't.
Okay. Then I'm gonna bow out and I will talk to you guys later.
All right. Thank you. So are we at the after prom?
Not quite. I just need to touch on C. Rudy.
Oh, okay. Oh, yep. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And this is very brief. I just wanted to include the council in this. This LEP, this language access plan. The city doesn't have one, limited English proficiency plan. This is part of a requirement from that rural development community facilities grant that we're receiving for the skid steer. This is a federal requirement. We don't have something like this. This is a sample plan that I've gotten from Angela Bakavoy. Basically what an LAP does is it ensures limited English proficiencies. It's a lot of equal opportunity employer portions and making sure that if we have limited proficiencies in the area and what we service as a city, we're taking stock in that, and that we have a plan in place to help with people that are bilingual or have sight or hearing deficiencies. So I'm working on this plan. I'll be partnering with the departments to get some feedback as to what types of people they may come across that have those deficiencies, and I have to put a plan in place. So I'll be working on this in the next coming months so that it can get adopted to fit that requirement that rural development is requesting.
That isn't delaying our
It is
grants
not. It is not. No, it is not. And that's all I had about that, unless anybody has any questions about it. Like I said, this is just a sample.
That sounds great to me.
Yeah, nothing here as well.
Just this is Jace here, over the whole project, or what we're looking at, I know nothing happens quickly, but I think Public Works and my department are kind of in a holding pattern to not spend money if we're going to be moving. But for my police department, we have a leaking roof and not ADA compliant, and carpet looks like it's 80 years old, and so on and so forth. So I don't want to throw money at my department or a building if we're going to be moved. So if another option to look at is just moving the police department or redoing it, whatever it may be, but something's got to be done for the structural integrity of my building at some point in the very near future here.
Okay, Jace, thank you.
Is that something we could ask Beltrami County for help? Since they use it too.
We supply the building, they supply all the IT computers and such.
Okay.
So
we have a shared,
we have a good deal with them right now.
yeah, we have a mutual agreement on what the shared responsibilities are.
Okay.
And if ever anybody wants to see it, I have it on file here, so. Yeah.
All right, moving on.
You're still in a holding pattern for prom.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Sandy Lean. She said the same thing Max said, is when she finds out, she'll let us know. I told her that, the council is going to keep it on their old business and didn't want to put money into something at this point, and she was appreciative of me at least reaching out. So she knows that the board is going to keep it on the agenda until we find out more from the school.
Okay.
Good.
Just throw this out there in case, I know Max knows about it, but what I believe it's the Booster Club is paying for some banners with senior pictures, and they're going to put them up on the fence over at the school. Correct, Max?
That is the plan so far.
It sounds like they found somebody to do the pictures and the banners pretty cheap, so the Booster Club is taking all that cost right now for our seniors.
Yeah. So anytime you support them, you're supporting the kids. So.
Yeah. I had Christina bring this up on this work session for this sites chain link fence. I just wanted to talk about it, get it on record that we are talking about it and we discussed it. I did have somebody go over there, a professional that does install these fences. And I'll tell you, my first conversation with them was, yeah, the snow probably caused it to bend and what, because I was in question of how the post would bend. The post wouldn't, the upright posts don't necessarily bend. The fence would push in and it would bend that top rail. Well, had this fence been installed properly and that happened, then yes, we would probably be responsible. But here's the deal. That fence was not installed properly. After he went and looked at it, he found that out. And the span between the uprights are too far for that fence. You can't go that distance. And that is why it failed the way it did. And it wasn't the city's fault anyway, but I just wanted to bring it up that I did just do a little bit of footwork on it myself, reached out to a professional installer, and they went over and looked at it and saw that it is not properly installed. Any questions?
Have you talked to them?
I have not, no.
All right. Well,
I just wanted to get feedback from you guys, and that's why I had Christina I wanted to see the land use permit and stuff. And obviously we didn't go back. Christina has not in the past either that I know of. Usually they issue the permit and then they go ahead, put their fence up or whatever they're going to do. And I don't think anybody really goes back and remeasures after it's installed, do they? I don't know.
I don't. It's not in my practice to go back. I issue, like, what I updated the council on tonight before the meeting was, Nick had originally put in the application back in late 2016, but the fence didn't get approved until, late 18, early 19 when it went in. Mike and I actually had some conversation in regards to the placement of the fence, just making sure that it was in the setback correctly and not in the right of way as well. And I apologize, the original land use permit I had put in, the agenda was not the one I was remembering, because I knew I had allowed Nick to renew it without cost. I had to go all the way back to 16 to find the original one. This is the original one. But yes, to your point, Rudy, once I go out, this is just a GIS map. I'm sorry, it's a copy of a copy. I measure the street, backside of the curb to backside of the curb. It's a 60-foot road by our platted map. The curb to curb is 48 feet. So that gives 8.5 feet back on either side of the road where the setback is. Well, one of the problems, there used to be a big hedge of rose bushes right here. And then when those came down, there's a flagpole on this corner. And then the water shutoff is outside, or was probably right underneath the rose bush line. And then there's a bird house as well. So as you can see by the permit, I specifically spelled it out that it needed to be a 12-foot setback, for the fence. And then the flagpoling, the existing surrounding, would be on the outside of the fence line. I don't know for sure. I never went back to double check it. This is what I do. This is what I present and I give to the folks. So I gotta assume that the person is installing it correctly. Nick was nice enough to put, his map when he presented it to me as where everything would be. And then I make my notes on the application. So they get a copy of this once I give them the permit as well. So they get both the copy of the application with their stuff, if I've made any notes at all, and the permit. When he came back in 19 to do some additional work to the home, that's when they were going to replace their windows. They did it to do a fire rated door for the
Daycare.
for the daycare. Thank you. Sorry. And then put some other things, some new gates, safety gates and stuff for the kiddos. And where the playgrounds and everything were going to be placed. So I did have more communication with Nick at that point. I re-approved the fence again, but I never did actually go back and measure that. I'm sad to know that their fence is not holding up for this past winter. It just went in the April.
I think it's just the upper rails, and like I said, it's pretty common for that to happen, even with just the snow load itself. It's going to happen with the distance that's between each upright.
Okay.
According to what I was told. So I'm obviously not a installer or an engineer on those fences, but that's why I reached out to someone, and they that's what they told me. So anyway, like I said, maybe we should, I don't know if we want to reach back out to them and talk to them again or not, but I guess it wouldn't hurt. I did have a brief conversation with Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but the curb shut off is outside the fence, and it actually, if we were to plow the snow like they said we were, I think we would have sheared off our shut off. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, if we would have actually been directly pushing the snow onto the fence, we would have sheared our shut off. That would have been gone. They have a large birdhouse on a 4x4 post. We would have took that out. We also would have took out about 4 feet of a wooden privacy fence to the south end of the property as well.
Okay.
Rudy, I just need to ask one thing of the group here, and that's just, other than my own communication with Nick this winter after the second snowfall, no one has come to the city except for board members discussing this as being a city issue at this point. I understand they're not happy with the way it's come out. I did state to Nick that if he feels it is something he needs to make a claim on the insurance against the city, that he may do so, because that's why the city does have insurance, but he would have to make that claim. So if the intention was for the city just at a complaint level to come back through and say, okay, well, we'll pay to fix your fence, it's just not how it works.
Right.
And I understand that some people will find that, not to their favor. I get it. but that is how that stuff works. We don't own the fence, so we'd fix the shut off. We wouldn't fix the fence.
Right.
And in some
Well-
cases, we wouldn't fix the shut off either because they technically own the service line. So I don't know where the disappointment is at this level, and I don't know if it's at the responsibility of the city to reach out any further than what we did.
Okay, that's, I agree with that. If they still have an issue with it, and I guess he can come in and talk to you, and you have the answers now. And if he does come in and talk to you, or if the insurance comes after us, I don't think we'd have to pay anyway, because the insurance company's going to come up and see that it wasn't installed properly. So at this point, I think it's a dead issue.
Well, is it, Max? He came to you, obviously.
No, it's, I'll back it up. I'll go with what Rudy wants to do on this. That's fine. As you stated, we don't, if they want something else done, I guess they should come before the full council and say so.
Okay. Jason?
This is Jason. Yeah, quick question. Are we making them go back from the 8 to the 12 feet when they're redoing their fence, or are we just going to allow them to keep it at the 8 feet?
If they if they fix their fence?
Well, they're saying that if we potentially damaged it and they're trying to redo it, are we going to make them do it correctly this time?
Yes, we should make them do it correctly this time, but I would like to get out there and measure it. Now that I have to prove that it's in the wrong spot, because I do not go back and tell them. I'm not a contractor, I'm not a site manager. I issue the permits. I expect somebody gonna do what the permit was given. But yes, to your point, I would want to go back and measure it again and make sure the fence was in the wrong place to begin with.
Okay, totally understandable. And then from moving forwards, are we going to set up a policy where we actually do go and verify that the work is done to code from here on out?
I'm not doing that. I don't have the time or the staff time to do so.
Okay.
So at this point, we can be done talking about it unless they bring it up to us again at a council meeting. Or to Christina.
Correct.
Okay. New business, Christina.
I'm gonna turn it over to Mike because he's got a few things he wants to touch on in his departments.
All righty. Well, I just kind of want to keep you guys, in the loop, have a little more, I don't know, transparency, for a lack of a better word, of just kind of where everything's at. Make sure you guys are all up to speed with everything and apprised of everything going on. So, with that said, I'm going to start with Croswell Avenue. I know we've gone kind of back and forth and talked about digging it out to the tune of 40 grand, I think, at one point. I just wanted to let you know that as of right now, the road is holding up pretty well up there. I think the little bit of ditching that we did this fall really helped to move some water during the melt there. I'm looking at possibly doing a slight bit more ditching there, as well as adding some gravel to raise that road in one spot and to crown it a little better so that the water is able to shed more instead of soaking into the road itself. So that's kind of where we're sitting with that. I know we had discussed letting that road kind of ride a little bit with being able to finance it and so forth, and with the rest of the stuff we had going on.
Hey, Mike,
Yes, sir.
do you have any of those, those millings left from when they redid the highway?
No, I do not have any of those. There's a huge pile of them just north of town that I would love to get my hands on and put up there, though.
All right, I was just wondering if you did, because it really shaped up on 4th Street there.
Yeah, those millings help a lot. They help a lot. They pack tight and they hold pretty tight.
If I could just add to Mike's statements about Croswell, as sad as it is in the situation we're at right now, not having the buses riding on Croswell this year and the lack of the lower transportation back and forth on that road is probably assisted in the holdup this spring too.
Oh, undoubtedly it's helped not having the weight of the bus. And again, I don't know that the daycare up there, is that really up and running right now?
I
think so.
I think Jenna's still doing daycare, yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, nonetheless, you know, just the buses alone not being in and out twice in the morning and twice in the evening helps a lot. This time of year anyways. Moving on past Croswell, just to give you a little update on the rest of the streets around town. You know, we're still working on the frost, you know, coming completely out, getting rid of frost boils and all that. You guys know how that works yearly. Got to wait for the roads to set up a little bit before we start grading them and trying to finish them off. The alleyways, you know, they can't support the weight of some of the machinery, so we really got to wait for those to dry up before I can get them real nice and smooth and leveled out again. The rest of the streets, you'll see there's areas where it looks like, you know, the manhole is sank 4 or 5 inches. Well, it's not that the manhole really sank, it's that the road lifted up. And that's just part of spring and part of how our roads and whatnot are around here. You know, it's the dirt and everything underneath them that does that. So we're coming out of that as we warm up here. It'll go away, they'll level down, and we'll readjust valve cans and so forth as we need to.
Mike, I got a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Provided what happened in Croswell last summer, do you think it's necessary for us to publicly say that we have some weight restrictions on some of our rural sections of roads with the frost coming out so they don't get any more damaged? Is that something we can control? I just know that frost boil in Croswell and all the extra weight plus Erickson's load of gravel or load of crushed granite did a bad thing to Croswell. Is it something that we can restrict some traffic?
Well, you know, when we're talking, when you start talking road restrictions up there, I mean, you got to remember that it's just a dead end up there. Nobody's really going in with anything too heavy. The heaviest thing for the most part is going to be the school bus. And of course, you know, the school buses don't abide by the weight restrictions.
What about the rest of some of our rural section roads in town, like down on 4th Street Southeast and 3rd Street Southeast?
Yeah, those are kind of down there. Hard to say exactly what we should do down there. I know exactly what you're talking about with the mill there, and down a little further south with, you know, the tractor trailer that's in and out. That's unfortunately a lot of where the road really gets pounded down there. What we do with that, I'd have to look into it to really say anything with any confidence whatsoever.
Okay.
So if that's something that everybody is interested in, then I can go forward. If it's something that we're not, then I really won't put much time into it.
I was just wondering if it's something that I need to like announce in the paper or something like that there's going to be some certain roads that we're going to have, you know, no deliveries on, or I don't know, just so that we keep them from getting any more damage than they are.
I think just using, I think is it 4th Street down there by the mill, the sawmill, I think that just falls apart from the buses. I mean, so putting a road restriction on there, I don't think is really gonna matter because where they're going into the mill isn't the issue. It's in front of the houses and stuff that the buses are tearing
The
it up,
bus only
basically.
goes down, it only goes up to Mill Avenue. It doesn't, it comes right down 4th Street and goes right up Mill. So
Okay.
it doesn't actually go all the way down to the end of 4th Street. It
Right.
stops
But
there. The kids.
Isn't the bad spot right there kind of right before Mill Avenue though, or right in front of that blue house? I don't remember exactly what
Yeah, right in front of the house there.
yeah.
On 4th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we have one semi coming down, coming up Mill Avenue and then
That's
turning
right.
and then backing up the rest of 4th Street to park
Okay,
for the evening.
I didn't realize that. I forgot about the semi that stays up there.
I think you'd be looking at more of almost a parking restriction. I mean, at this point, do we have anything on the books about tractor trailers being parked on residential roads?
Yeah, I believe we do, because we went through this with Northern, right?
Yeah, yep.
So I guess
That's a paved road. Well, sort of paved.
There's one way to, possibly address it that way versus a road restriction that we would then have to have that on the books. It's not something we can just slap on ourselves.
Okay.
So if that one semi, which, I mean, we all know which one it is up there, if that's an issue, then obviously the way to go about it maybe is to enforce the parking restriction if there is one, like I said.
I mean, would it be a possibility, Mike, like, if he was to still keep parking there, I mean, is he really hurting it? No, he's really not hurting anything. But I mean, if he was to constantly come in empty, like not have a full load sitting on there when he parks it up there.
Yeah, I mean, coming in empty is obviously, that's going to be better than coming in fully loaded with all that weight. Come spring, when you guys know how it is, it gets soft in there. You come through there with all that and you're just rutting it up even further.
I mean, I don't want it to become like an issue where I get it. We don't want to do the play favorites thing or do it, one rule for everybody. That's fine with me too.
I think one of our other problems we have too is that is technically in those properties. It's coded as industrial. So if there's semi-traffic on that road and they're going to an industrial piece of property, it's kind of hard to keep them from going there.
I don't think it's an industrial piece of property when there's a single family home on it, is it?
I guess I'd need the backstory because I'm not sure I'm in line with yours.
I think the industrial part is only to the sawmill. Where that semi is going is up to the house farther up.
So that'd be either that or it's residential, because I believe I'm zoned agricultural. I'm right next to it on the other side of the street.
Right, because the house that we're talking about is south of you, Max, to right where the semi's parked is south up 4th Street more.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. So it's not the parcels on the southeast side of the snowmobile trail?
No, it'd be south of Max and on the west side of the gravel road.
Okay. Yeah, that's residential. I mean, it stinks because I don't know if you guys can see this.
Yeah, we see.
That residential section is an island surrounded by industrial. So that's very difficult to enforce because industrial is going to have to get somewhere. You know what I mean? It's just the traffic is not going to align with it very well.
This issue came up, I don't know, a couple of years ago on Northern, if you guys remember. There's certain streets and avenues that we can't have trucks on, or that we do have posted with signs, actually no truck traffic. But when that issue came into play, I think the city as a group had decided that we need to provide these people that are working, living in town somewhere to park. And if I remember right, routing them over across from Public Works there to that empty lot to try to park there.
Right. You're right, Jay. Okay.
Anything else on the semi parking traffic from anyone?
No.
Okay, moving on, just into the streets a little bit more. I know the snow's all gone. You guys maybe have seen the sweeper around once or twice. Unfortunately, with the way the weather's been, we haven't been sweeping because of the temperature at night. I don't want to fill the sweeper with water, have it outside, potentially freeze, and take out some internals on the sweeper. So that's kind of where we sit with that. If this weather would ever cooperate, I would start getting the streets a little more clean. So
Just do like the gravel roads, fill full of calcium chloride.
Yeah, just let her rip, huh? All right, moving on to a little bit of some talk about some equipment here, just to refresh everybody's memory with all this. You know, we're still sitting with a tractor that at this point has maybe 3% working brake capacity at most. You know, the auto leveler's not working. All 4 tires need to be replaced. The tractor itself needs to be fully serviced. I know we skimmed over this a while back, but I think it's important to bring this up again where we're sitting with everything. Our big plow truck, you guys know it's aging. The box is rusting out. The box has holes in it. You know, we're dropping sand and salt when we don't even want to be. The 2-way plow is having issues with the hydraulic cylinders. We're rotting out hoses underneath of the vehicle. The frame has got some rust. It's got a lot of electrical issues going on with it. The regular cab Chevy pickup that we use for things, you know, that's got, what do we got? 1 or 2 ball joints, I think, going out on that. We got some gremlin noises that we don't know what they are going on. We got a box that is so rusted out that it flaps in the wind going down the road. The floor is made out of old street signs at this point. So that's kind of where the regular cab sits. We did put an axle in it recently, and I also put brand new tires on it because I gotta have it. So we're still trying to limp it along and baby it along, but that's kind of where that's sitting with that. You know, our other mowers, they're all kind of tuned up. We're ready and raring to go. You know, just so that everybody knows where we're at with mowers. The 2 newest mowers that we have are the Kubotas. One I believe is 2, maybe 3 years old at this point. I'd have to check my exact number. The other one's a little bit older and is in substantially rougher shape. And then we also have an even older John Deere model 777, and we keep that one around basically when the mower breaks out at the golf course. We bring them out our John Deere, we grab theirs, bring it back, fix it up, trade it out the next time it breaks out there. So we got to look at kind of starting to rotate that stuff pretty soon as well, just so you guys know what's going on there. One last kind of piece of equipment that I want to touch on quickly that some of you may not even know that we own. We own a John Deere Gator, and it's actually a very, very valuable piece of equipment for us when it comes to the spray irrigation site. Being that it's a 6x6, we're able to get around. It has, you know, balloon flotation tires. That piece of equipment has been well used. I can tell you that. That's going to be something that in the near future. And unfortunately, guys, you know, I hate to say it, and I hate to just keep trying to shake this money tree here, but things have gotten overlooked for so long that we're at a point where almost everything has to be replaced. And I hate to do it, but I got to keep reminding you guys of where we are with everything. But that gator is going to need to be either replaced, or we're going to need to put quite a bit of money in it to bring that up to speed and up to snuff, so that we can keep getting out to our irrigators properly and getting rid of our wastewater the way we need to. And that's just kind of where that sits. I know I went through it kind of fast, and, you know, I can always, you know, you guys can get a hold of me and ask anything you want. Is there anything you guys want to ask on any equipment before we move on to the next thing here?
No, not specifically, Mike, but you said you have the one Kubota is only a couple years old, and the other
Correct.
one, the other mower is, I don't know how old. But are we looking at what are the costs? What are the prices on some of this new stuff? I mean, if you had to replace that Kubota today, what would our cost be?
You know, we kind of looked into it briefly last fall, and I want to say, I don't know if you remember, Christina, or not, and I could probably dig the numbers out somewhere, but I want to say, weren't we around like 11, 12,000, somewhere in there?
Yeah, we started looking at some turnover of your machines. Some of these
Yes.
conversations we've had as your mowers, and that's why we fit some money into some of the budgets so that we could do some flips, one in Pine Tree Park and so forth, and looking at the age of them. But yeah, I want to say we were at about 12.
And that
that's
number is per mower.
That's per mower, and I think that was assuming the newest of the two mowers we have, we would try to flip.
Correct. We were hoping that the newest that we had, you know, we could possibly trade in or, you know, sell ourselves to
Right.
recoup as much money as possible, because the older of the Kubotas is to the point where it doesn't really have much resale value at this point.
Right. The other thing that we discussed when we looked at budgeting this year is we've been talking in detail about the 07 pickup. It's an 07, right? I have that right?
No, that one's 03, I believe. 03, 04.
Oh, it's 4 years. Anyway, and the use of what we existingly have with the 17, and what having two pickups can do for the department, and how we could progressively get, when we have the last payment on the 17, trade that one in and find two pickups that would be more useful to your department, and finding creative ways to utilize them, you know, the drop-in sander and so forth, so that it isn't a machine that has such less use as you stated this past winter. So
Correct.
yeah, we have some ideas to help make these machines more useful in the future. We just need to put money to estimates and start working on moving forward with those. My other comment was on the tractor issues. We're at the extent where we know how much it's going to cost to get this thing back up and running. And we put a hold on that when we started with the community facilities grant, and we started with the possibility of the new public works building, assuming we could build into our bonding some new equipment. What I think we need to do as a city is we need to decide in order of importance, and I know, Mike, you're going to say all of it, in order of importance, what can we move forward on first? What can we get away with fixing at a cost level? Because we all know a tractor and a plow truck are going to be, you know, over $100,000 each or more.
Are you asking my opinion right now?
Sure.
They're oh boy. you know, I think you kind of guys know where I'm headed with this. There's no dang point in getting anything if we don't have somewhere to put it.
Exactly. So we keep making this vicious circle
Yep.
of what comes first. What comes first?
Well, I can tell you this. I actually just came across a really nice used plow truck the other day at a really good price. Low miles for what it is. It's exactly what we'd be looking for in a bigger plow truck. Just to give you guys an estimate, that used asking price is $80,000. Okay. With our tractor, what are we at? 20-some thousand we need to put into it just to get the brakes and, you know, the general service up and running again. You know, we're looking at that. The new tractor, I haven't got an exact price, but I want to believe that those are right around $95,000, $100,000. Your mowers are, you know, like we said, 12, maybe up to 15 a piece. These things are all, you know, it's a good chunk of change, and I guess I can't see investing in any of this stuff if we're just going to let it rot, if we're not going to have the place to put it, if we're not going to have the things to properly maintain these vehicles. That's half the problem here, is that nothing's been maintained. They haven't had the resources to do it. And without that, I mean, I absolutely hate saying it, but without doing that, I don't even want the new equipment. I don't want to see the new stuff rot away. You know? So that it's really a double-edged sword for me right now. I really have no place to go up or down, side to side, other than just to keep running what we got and trying to get through with it.
Well, we all know from what I've discussed with Gail is that finding money for equipment, free money, is not readily available.
Right.
So the best I can suggest them from the finance portion is that we need to either trade up to something more used, that's still used, much like we did with our not our plow truck, our backhoe, and slowly keep working our way up here, because even the building concept, regardless of what dollar amount Steve threw at us tonight, is a 3 and 5 year process in my mind. And we can't wait that long on some of this equipment. So we need to find a middle ground here. There's some things I think we're going to have to fix. And then hope that after that, we might get some money for it and trade up again. It might be keep it for 2 years and then move on 2 more years later with a different one.
If I can add anything in, then what I can tell you right now is that the 03 Chevy pickup is absolutely 100% not worth putting a dime into. The big plow truck is not worth putting any money into. In fact, I'm pretty sure the turbo is out on that vehicle at this point. I mean, rendering it almost useless. There's a lot of these things that it doesn't pay to put any money into them. We're just almost flushing money away, unfortunately. And I don't think that's the responsible thing to do either on some of this.
So, Mike, with getting that new skid steer, I mean, I know, there's attachments that can be rented or whatever the case may be. As far as the tractor is, let's just say this, okay? If we got rid of can we get rid of just the old plow truck, the old pickup, the 03? I mean, or can it be replaced? Can that be replaced with the big truck or do we, I guess I'm trying to, do we have to get a big plow truck and a pickup at the same time, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, you really can't operate with only one pickup here. for me, Ray, Chris, all to share one pickup. You know, maybe we could go to a half ton. Maybe we could drop down. Maybe we could cut some corners here and there and try some different things. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do with a lot of this stuff, is try different stuff out and figure out what's going to work. But I've never seen a city anywhere that has one pickup for 3 guys to try to get around and do different jobs throughout town. I mean, that's just impossible.
Well, it kind of sounds like one of the priorities then is to be looking for a new pickup with a plow on it, because we use both plow trucks, right? Or both pickups for the plowing.
Yes, we do.
And so I think that's kind of going to be a priority, because yeah, you're right. We need to have that additional vehicle. We should actually have 2, to be honest with you.
I think like you say, the thing to do is, I think, to go with that. And unfortunately, I don't know what else to do at this point, but just to keep running the other equipment until there's absolutely nothing left of it. But when there's nothing left, there's going to be nothing left, guys. And then I'm not going to be able to do anything beyond that.
Right. Christina, where are we at with our payments and lease on the Mike's truck, or however you want to put it?
On the 17,
Yeah.
I want to say we have one more year after this. I think 21 is the last year.
Yeah, we looked into it. It should be ending, didn't we figure January, February, something like that, at 21, Christina?
Yeah, I believe 21 February is the last lease payment.
Well, I think we need to start getting a bid for a new plow pickup. You know,
I've got them all.
Okay.
And we don't have to finish that lease
Right.
to do this.
Right.
No, it doesn't have to be done, that lease return. I don't know if we need to do that or not. I can look through the GM financial documents and see, but I can't imagine there's a penalty if we're gonna flip it over with another GM.
Oh, you mean
Purchase.
it'd be just an additional payment though. You wouldn't be combining it.
Right.
So here's what I would really like to see on a pickup standpoint, just so everyone's aware. The 4-door pickup, why we have a crew cab pickup, I'm really not quite sure. I would like to see the crew cab go away, and for us to have 2 regular cab long box 3/4 ton pickups.
Okay.
So the old work truck right now, that's a regular cab long box 3/4 ton, so we'd just be updating that. And when this lease is up on this pickup, the 4-door, Christina and I had talked about at that time turning that into a better suited vehicle for our needs, because this one was not set up with the proper suspension, the proper alternator, any of that for the amount of plowing that it does and the work that it does. This is overjoyed people hauler.
Mike, that being said, do we have to have you explored, do we have to finish out that lease, or can we?
I'm gonna look into that. I
Okay.
think we could probably end it early if it works like a regular lease. It's just, you'd have to, if you don't go with the same financier, if we don't go with GM again for the next machine or machines, we may have to pay up some of it. So let me look into the documentation. It's and I'll report back to you guys.
And actually, when I was looking at prices, I actually got quotes, I believe, on Chevy, Ford, and Dodge. And if I remember right, I'd have to dig out my paperwork right now, because this has been a few months ago that I did it. I believe that the GM actually came in cheaper, and it was through the same dealership that this came from. So
I think you're right, Mike. I remember that too.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking on that.
That truck came from Hibbing, and that Bob O'Hara's got the state government pricing on all Ford, Chrysler, and GM. So it might not matter which one you go through, because he runs all the state contracting.
Okay.
Well, I talked to him pretty extensively and went back and forth with emailing, and it's a little bit different now, I think, with what he's doing, but I was able to get, you know, the state pricing on Chevy, Ford, Dodge. I did have to call around and talk to a few different places, but I do have the numbers. So one way or another, we can figure that all out with whatever we decide on the pickups. You guys have any other questions, concerns, anything on equipment?
I think it's nice to hear your opinion on it, Mike, actually, because I think that makes a heck of a lot more sense to have two 3/4 tons than it does to have one quad cab like that.
Yeah, the quad cab just, yeah, it's a nice looking pickup, but it's really cumbersome when you're out plowing. There's a lot of dead spots in it. I don't think you guys have ever seen us really riding around 4 or 5 people in the pickup, have you? You know, it's just one of those things that we could really benefit more from a regular cab 3/4 ton. It's going to probably cost us a little bit less, and it's overall going to work out a lot better for us. So that's kind of where I sit with that.
Let's put a plow on the city squad car.
I'm good with it.
We could probably plow the streets a little faster.
That single cab, on my 2 cents, guys, that single cab that we have, I've driven a few times doing some surveillance stuff. It shouldn't be on the road. That one needs to be taken care of. There's no speedometer. There's no gauges. It needs to be replaced.
Anything else on that stuff, guys, before we move on?
No, sir. Not for me.
All right. I just want to touch on a couple other things here quick. Moving over to the water side of things. Recently, the state of Minnesota, or the Minnesota Department of Health, changed what is known as our fluoride rule, and it's actually, they've lowered it a little bit. So with that said, residents aren't going to notice any change in it. It will affect us a little bit at the plant. I've had to scale back on our feed rates. In the long run, we'll save a little bit of money, but we're not really going to see it, so to speak. It's a real low amount to see anything there. I just wanted to kind of cover that. That was just recently changed. I plan on doing some hydrant flushing pretty soon here. Again, I'd like to see it warm up a little bit. Once we do that, I'll get a notice out into the paper, put something on our Facebook 365, probably a week, maybe 2 weeks in advance, just to let residents know, because, you know, there are oftentimes spots that will get a little bit of orange water coming through, and obviously we don't want anybody washing their Sunday whites when the orange is there. That's not going to be good for any of us. So that's where we sit on that. I'm looking at making the hydrant that is on the corner next to our current city shop. I'm looking at making that a designated fill point for all these water trucks, tender trucks that are coming in and out of town. That way we can try to hopefully keep an eye on it a little bit better, make sure that, try to hold them honest and accountable. Also looking at putting some sort of meter on it so we can have the exact amount of water usage that we're able to charge for. So just a heads up on that. I'll hopefully know a little more on that coming up here. Switching over to wastewater. Our ponds right now are nearing their maximum levels for what they were designed for, which means that pretty soon we will start discharging. Unfortunately, I have to wait a little bit. You're supposed to have a rooted crop in there. Unfortunately, with the way last year's harvest went and not being able to get the corn out until just recently, that might not be a possibility, so we might end up opening up what we call the end guns on the irrigators and letting it go. We will be within our parameters to do that, just so that you guys are aware of what's going on out there. Irrigator number 2 will be the last of the irrigator upgrades this year. That'll complete all 4 of them. That will be done sometime this summer, once it's dried up and we're able to get the heavy service trucks out there and go to town on that. Following with wastewater right now, some of the reason that we have kicked up with our water level in our pond is from aging infrastructure. And what I mean by that is we have a large inflow and infiltration rate. And what that is really is when the snow all started melting off, we've got pipes with bad joints, we've got pipes with cracks, holes, we've got manholes with cracks, we've got lift stations with seepage. So what happens there is all that groundwater that we really shouldn't have to deal with gets in our pipes. We got to run it through our pumps, we got to put it out through our lift station into our pond, and then out through the irrigator. So, you know, we're losing a lot of money, so to speak, every year in pushing water around that we really don't need to push around. We're kind of going forward with trying to figure out and address and see exactly where these things are. So that just kind of, again, you know, with everything I'm saying here tonight, I'm just trying to keep you guys up to date so you know where my departments are all at and what's going on, and try to be as open as I can with everybody. Moving on, the next thing I want to talk about tonight, and the last thing actually that I want to talk about, is Pine Tree Park. And out there, I don't know how familiar any of you are with the bath and shower house out there. We do need to move forward relatively soon with doing some updates and some remodeling out there. We've gotten, from what I can see, we've gotten kind of slapped with, they're not really fines, but from the Department of Health, you know, kind of slaps on the wrist of get some stuff taken care of here, and some of this stuff goes back a good number of years that it's just been ignored or passed off. So that building out there, we do need to look at doing some stuff with the floor, the showers themselves, the bathroom stalls, the sinks, all that. And I will be getting some numbers through the lumberyard coming up here on what that is going to cost us. I know, Christina, we do have a fair amount of money in the Pine Tree Park fund right now, so we should be able to do this all in-house and not really have to worry about any kind of funding at this point.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to stay on Pine Tree Park for just a little bit longer here, you know, with the addition of the beach that's coming out there, I'm hoping that's going to draw some more people to our campground. With that said, once we do this bathroom update, I've also been looking into doing a few other things out there that I think will possibly attract more people and have them to be, you know, repeat customers, you know, reoccurring visits from year to year. Looking at, you know, doing something along the lines of maybe a little bocce ball court out there, volleyball, a half basketball court, things like that to give families some stuff to do. Because really right now, there's not a whole lot going on out there. You know, yeah, you can camp, you can have a little fire, maybe roast some marshmallows, but if we can start giving some people some stuff to do at a relatively low cost to us, I think that we'll recapture our cost in revenue down the road tenfold. Same along the lines of, and I don't know if it's ever been kicked around or not, I would really like to see some sort of a dock system out there in the future. You know, we could easily charge $10 a slip per day and get our money back there. So just a little heads up for some stuff to you guys to be thinking about. Also, you know, possibly we do have water to Christina, is it 10 campsites, 12 campsites maybe?
Yeah.
Those campsites I would also be looking at possibly putting sewer to. I believe the slope is right out there that we could do it relatively easily. Those campsites are on the what I call the high side of the park now, the north end. They would flow naturally down to where the pit is at this point. And again, it's just another thing to keep people around and have them show up. A lot of guys like to just hook their camper up to full hookups and unhook and leave, and they don't have to stop somewhere and try to unload that. So just a few things for you guys to be thinking about. And of course, if anyone has any suggestions for stuff that we could do out there to attract more people and keep them around, I'm all ears on that too.
Just one.
What's that, Max?
Just one. You could paint the sign out there.
Well, that's actually on my, I've got a real long list, a 2-page list in front of me of stuff that I'd like to do out at the park. And one of them is to replace the sign, not only out there, but also the one that would be on the northwest corner of 71 and Summit there. So there'll be some signage done and just a lot of things to help, you know, beautify our town and you know, make people really want to come back, want to stay. So that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of this stuff.
Christina, where are we at with the park fund out there? I mean, we haven't really spent a lot of money out there, and we get quite a bit from the county now, don't we?
Yeah, we're getting an $11,000 contribution right now annually from Beltrami County, and I did reach out to them last week just in the COVID issues, if that's still going to be dispersed this spring, and I got the thumbs up from Jody Treat. We have about 63,000 in cash balances in the Pine Tree Park Fund, and that's another reason why when Mike and I looked at some of the work and doing the budget for this year, we really wanted to put some money into the showers and the bathrooms. Keep in mind, there's about $13,000 of that money that is set aside for the beach from donations. So I have that set aside. So at a council, when you guys are reviewing the income statements, I have made another column there. So just keep in mind in the back of your head that we have some contributions there that are set aside only for the beach. But regardless of that, we should have a large enough cash balance to be able to do what we definitely need to do, which is the MDH points on the showers and the bathrooms. And a lot of them, some of them are cosmetic things, but some of them are also structural things to the building. The doors don't shut all the way, so the lights don't turn off because the door is ajar. We do get those little June bugs in the room. And in the past, you know, the guys every morning, they're cleaning those up, they're cleaning the bathrooms, they're sweeping them up, but it's a campground. You still get the critters in there. So unless we spray every year for them, it's going to be difficult. So that the door on those restrooms is a definite must. And Mike and I have spent a lot of time out there last summer reviewing what that building looks like. You know, it's had an addition to it. So there's some things that we can do cosmetically in-house to update it, but also there's some structural things that need to be done in order to keep the problems from coming back.
Correct.
I'd like to just touch on what Mike said real quick on that, the improvements. If we have the money for Pine Tree Park, I think council should really look at docks. I've got a lot of family or my in-laws that are from all over the state, and they keep asking about the dock system. They've been coming here for 40, 50, 60 years to Blackduck, and they're trying to pay resorts in the area to put their boat because they're coming in with RVs, fifth wheels, whatever it may be. And they want to stay at our campground, but there's nowhere for their boat because they have to use their RV to move it in and out. So they're paying our local resorts money to store their boat on their dock. I really think it would keep that place full with the fishing that Blackduck Lake is.
Yeah.
I agree. I've been saying we need to do something out there for docks for a long time. So I agree. We need to try to do something there if we can.
I think if we were to, docks probably aren't going to come this year. I know that. I think we need to focus on some more low dollar items, but if it's something that we're all kind of in agreement on, then it's something I'll definitely look into a little bit more. I've thought a little bit about it. Obviously if we do docks, we're going to need to, how are we going to put them in? How are we going to get them out? What are we going to do with that? I would probably suggest at that point, I mean, we've all seen the floating plastic kind of puzzle piece dock. That's probably going to be our best bet. I know I've got a boat, so I can do a lot of it out there. I mean, we can figure those things out, but it'll be something that we need to decide if we really want to look into that. And I do recommend us looking into that pretty soon. Anything else,
Mike?
No, I don't have anything else. You guys have any questions on anything I spoke about or anything else at all?
No, Mike, I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Christina, have you had any council vacancy interest? Other than
Nothing in writing. Talked to 2 residents. One was semi-serious, but I don't know where they're sitting at this point. I haven't talked to them since mid last week. The other person I did speak to, they're apprehensive, but I guess time will tell. It's hard for me to be in both positions at once. I don't feel or believe I feel it's a conflict for me to go out there and encourage and recruit. I will answer every question possible to try to get the perfect snapshot of what's expected and what could possibly happen. But aside from, maybe getting the 4 of you guys involved and being able to, give the outsider's opinion of it, that's the only way I can really attract more people. So yeah, nothing official, I'm sorry.
Any thoughts from the counselors on any of that? Has anybody talked to anybody or heard anything?
Nothing serious, Rudy.
I've just got a general inquiry about what's expected of members, but nothing substantial yet.
Yeah, nothing on this end as well.
And or you could just say, if anybody out there listening in YouTube land, living within city limits.
Something was brought up to me about that. Wouldn't owning a business in city limits, could that be changed?
No. No.
Okay.
It's a state law.
Statute.
Yeah.
I have had people ask me to be proponents to change it, but that's not my place.
Well, I think the big problem is you start pushing that issue, start changing that, then the state's going to look at trying harder to take away our local government. They're already trying to push us out of it, and they want every little city being ran by the state. We start doing that, I think that's just going to provoke them to push us out.
That, and I don't think St. Paul or Minneapolis would want me voting in their elections.
Christina, you want, should we move on to budget comparison?
Yes, please. Whoop. Okay, hang on. I gotta make you guys smaller. So I can make this bigger. Okay. I make you guys even smaller yet so I can show this. Okay, so Q2 is kind of a slow month or a slow quarter for the city in terms of what's going on with our enterprise funds. We haven't got the golf course open yet. We don't have Pine Tree Park open yet. It can typically be a slower time frame. We're in between seasons for the liquor store as well. But most importantly, it's definitely a slower time for our general fund. The city does not receive its first half property tax payments until late June, early July. And LGA does not, first half payment at LGA also doesn't come in until around the same time. Typically what happens in Q2 for the general fund, though, on an expenditure side, is that our workers' comp premium and our liability and auto premiums are due by June 1. In the past, historically, I've always paid the full premiums both in the May bill batch, and that shows and reflects our expenditure balance and our cash balances to all of the funding, all of our funds, expenditures and enterprise funds as well as general funds. So what I wanted to do for the council is just to provide to you a snapshot of what this COVID crisis could potentially cause for us if, because there is discussion at the state level with lobbyists as well as at the county level of what our commercial and our residential property tax payments, you know, the outcome could be this first half. There's obviously many people out there that are on unemployment, not making their full, you know, paychecks. Some people pay their property taxes in cash because they don't have an escrow. And then there's our commercial businesses that are, several of them are closed right now, that may or may not be able to make their payments as well. I've had comments with, or excuse me, I've had interviews with Jody Treat at the county. I've talked with Jim Lukacek. I've talked with Tim Sumner. They're potentially discussing waiving penalties and late fees for those that can't pay their first half of their payments, their property tax payments until by May 15th as well. And what that could mean to the city is a dramatic drop in our general fund after Q2 is done. And if we continue on the same level of expenditures we normally do in Q2, we have payroll we have to meet, and we have these premiums we have to pay for as well. So what I wanted to provide to the council is just an estimate of what our account balances could be through June 1. Obviously the golf course, everybody knows we're in the negative, and that's why this graph is showing this way. But each of these colors represents an option. What I am planning on doing is we do have an option to pay half of our liability premium instead of in full, and then the other half at a few months later in the summer. But what we don't have as an option is only paying half of our workers' comp insurance by June 1. And as you can see by these numbers down here, those dollar amounts can drastically drop our fund balances. The other thing to keep in mind for some of our enterprise funds, like the liquor store, is our on sale is closed right now. And predominantly, we make more net gross profit in the on sale than we do in the off sale. So we have a closed side to the liquor store. generally in May and June, we make a $20,000 liquor store transfer to the general fund that assists in these balances and helps us being able to afford those premiums and our payroll until our property taxes and our LGA come in. So I wanted to share with the council what those balances could potentially look like. And if you look at column 1 under the general fund, under the June 1 beginning balance, if we pay half of our liability, this is our best case scenario. Assuming we cannot get the transfer from the liquor store, and assuming we stay on the same trend for expenditures we would typically do in April and May. You can see the enterprise funds look a little differently, but this is a reality that many cities are looking at, and it's my responsibility and the fiduciary side of my job to provide to the council the reality that we're going to be dropping our general fund balance below where it typically is. A lot of the times in previous years, our general fund balance at the beginning of May is more like 150 grand, not 104. So we've got some dollars that aren't going to be there for several reasons. This is conversation. I don't know what's going to end up at the state level, and they may pass a bill, which I just got an email today that's in the House, that gives the counties the ability to change that date of when property taxes are due. If that ends up being the case, we may not see our first half payments as early as the end of June. We might see it a little later too. And I have some concerns about that. So I felt it was necessary for me to share these numbers with the council. This is just a predicted estimate. This is only based off of 19's numbers in April and May. And I don't have a solid, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you that this is exact, but I'm just based off of what I believe the workers' comp and the liability premiums are going to cost the city this year, and where those cash balances sit after March was done and we started in April. Do you guys have any questions?
Do you have an estimate of where we're at with the pond as far as liquor sales and this year compared to last year? Just out of curiosity, you know, they talk about how much more, how high the liquor sales are right now. Are we actually doing okay on off sale versus, you know, and having the on sale closed?
Well, last year's April, we made $34,000 just in on sale alone. So you can eliminate 35 grand just in April's revenues this year. I pulled 18 numbers for Shonda today, but if I remember right, last year's May, we did 106 in the liquor store. And I'm estimating like a 3% loss, but I know it's probably going to be more. I'm guessing we'll probably maybe do 89 in May and maybe 68 this month in the liquor store total. Right now, I pulled the balance after the weekend's deposits, and I think the month for April right now is at like 48. That's huge. When last year in April, we did 84. So we're gonna come in way under, which we had, obviously we know, but without that on sale open, yeah, I do not expect us to make that $20,000 transfer. I really don't. We can do it. They've got the cash balances to do so, but they don't have the net profit right now to do so for this year. Any other questions?
Well, I don't know what we'll ultimately decide on doing, but I mean, what else would the cash balances be for? If not to use, if we come down to that point to pay.
You're correct. You are correct. We just want to make, the only reason I'm being very cautious right now, Max, is because we're closed. And I don't know yet if, I mean, right now we're assuming we're going to open on May 5th. Everybody's assuming we're going to be open on May 5th, but I can guarantee you, of all the feedback that I've gotten, it's not going to be the same way it was before we closed. You know, I know that there's a lot more people that are a lot more optimistic than me, but I'm trying to look at the worst case scenario. Like Shonda said today, I get paid to be a pessimist. But, you know, we can't have a loss this year. We have a lot committed to that liquor store this year. And Shonda's very optimistic, and I give her a lot of kudos for this, because not only will we have reduced revenues, but we're also going to have reduced expenditures. So will it wash? I don't know, Max. But yes, you're right. What else is those cash balances there for? Well, they're there to run the building and the staff that are in it, but they're also there to offset the general fund. You are correct. Right now, I plan on only paying half of the liability insurance for June 1 in order for us to get this general fund where it's not in the red. Last year, they did 3 payments of LGA. They're not doing that this year. They did like a 15% in first part of June. Then they did like 50. I don't know, it was like 45 and another 50. So it was progressive. They're not doing that this year. We saw a $37,000 deposit from our LGA by June 1 in 2019. They're not doing that this year. But I don't know if it makes you feel any better, we're not alone. Every city is looking at this and trying to analyze what could potentially be the worst case scenario. Even the counties at that level too, they know they have to pay their payroll. Any other questions?
Not on that, not for me.
Okay. Rudy, do you want me to move on?
Yeah, move on. Go ahead.
Okay, so letter D, I sent the council a quick email last week that we're gonna start fishing for attorney legal representation. I have had 3 outside agencies already request this RFP since I posted it on the League of Minnesota Cities website last week, and it's publicly announced in the paper. We have representation from 2 different entities. We have one for what I call the property side of the city, and then the civil or the HR side, policy side is how I look at it. That's been difficult. I know that our attorney up in I Falls has had some health issues in the last couple of years. He's always been there when I call him, but I think we need to look forward and try to find some in-house representation, or maybe a firm that can actually be there a little bit more often for not only the administrative side of it, but also the council side of it. So what I'm asking is, I've asked Jace to sit on a 3-person committee when this time frame of taking RFPs are done, and I'd like one of the council members to sit with Jason and I to review those once we've got them in. And I don't care who it is, but I figured one is probably plenty. And since Jace will need some of that legal representation for the police department, that's why I picked him to sit there as well.
Okay, are we taking volunteers here, or are we just, don't everybody jump at once?
First of all, is there anyone interested?
Well, I've already done some research, so it doesn't matter. If somebody else wants to help out with it, I will it doesn't have to be me, but I certainly will.
Jason, Jason, I don't know. That's what you're going to school for, right?
No, technically not yet. That's the grad school part. This is just political science. That's just debating.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll be more than happy to do my due diligence if needed.
Yeah.
Max, you were starting to say something?
I can do it. It doesn't matter to me. I'd be happy to sit on it.
Okay.
So why doesn't Jace pick?
Well, I'd nominate Max to sit if he's got time to get to some committee meetings with him. Any comment?
I don't think anybody's going to second me.
We have to second.
You're in a work session, you two.
I was just nominating Max.
I would say the person that sits on the council that's got any more courtroom or anything would be Paige. She deals with more of that issue than we would.
Valid point.
It's also like a mechanic though, doesn't want to work on their own car, so.
Well, I want a council member. I can go out and take somebody else off a department head, but I want a council member. So I'll let the four of you guys duke it out. Let me know by email.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, moving on then.
Sure.
Okay, everybody reach out to Christina then with an email who you want, or if they want to do it, whatever. Looks like I don't know. She'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Okay, so wow, it's 9 o'clock. Okay, so this thing I wanted to do tonight, Mike had to talk for a long time. I do have the full document signed by everybody. Thank you, Max, for getting that back to me for your code of ethics and conflict of interest policy. It was suggested to me by one of my colleagues that as a council, you pick a topic of this and just kind of, I call it a deep dive. Maybe it's a full-on open discussion, what you believe represents each of these. And I was going to suggest that as a council every month, you pick one and you talk about it so that this document is living and breathing. Especially that way, everybody that's sitting on the board kind of understands where everybody else is on their interpretation of what this means. That way it becomes something that's living and breathing instead of, like somebody had mentioned, it just ends up on a shelf. So I suggested, I just stuck the first one on there. I put, the act in the public interest. And I thought it would be a good idea just for like a round robin, Rudy, just to say, what does this mean to me? And how do I represent it? So I'm going to put everybody on the spot. Do you want me to read it first?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Nobody's jumping at.
Okay. Well, no one's telling me no, but here we go. Okay. So the first one under the ethics is act in the public interest. And how we have it written says, recognizing the stewardship of the public interest must be the council member's primary concern. Council members shall work for the common good of the people of Blackduck and not for any private or personal interest. And they will endeavor to treat all persons, claims, and transactions in fair and equitable manner. So what I was going to suggest is, what does that mean to you if you translate it into a real life situation? And then maybe everybody could provide an example.
I'll go first.
Yay!
I guess for me, in a real life example, something that's happened recently is when we do our budget, for me as a citizen, of course, I would rather, do what's best for me personally and not raise any of our taxes and not do any of that, because that would save me, cash. But as a city councilor, I recognize that even though that's what would benefit me, what benefits the community is having those funds to be able to better serve it instead of just my financial, a couple bucks a month. So I think that's what recognizing that importance is for me in a real life situation.
Awesome.
Well, I'll go next. Acting in the public interest means to promote the public, to promote the community you live in. We don't run it down. We don't say, we brought it up at one council meeting. How you greet people when they first move to town is a pretty important thing, because you don't say, well, why'd you move here? You would say, welcome to Blackduck. To be promoting, it's a big part of it. And when people, it doesn't matter, who it is, if they approach you, you should bring the matter before the council, it work session or not. It doesn't matter who it is. If someone has an issue and they bring it to you as a counselor, it's your job to mention it.
Thank you, Max.
I'll go next if Rudy don't. All right. I guess mine would be using the same thing, kind of like what Paige was saying about how we were trying to propose the improvements for Liberty Drive by putting the citizens' needs and everyone else on the street above my own personal way of how it should be going. Just try to put a better standard for people to look up to, I guess.
Is that everything, Jason?
Yep, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, I just didn't want to cut you off. Yeah, I agree with, I just want to say kind of the same thing as Max is promoting Blackduck. I've talked to different people from out of the area where they come in and they've heard bad things, and I do everything I can to, welcome to our town, and I'm glad you're up here visiting, and try to, get information from them on what we can do to make things better for them, to make them more comfortable here, and address their concerns at different, whether it's a work session or or a council meeting, you know, just take as much of the input from everybody that you can. You know, some of it you have to just kind of weed out because that's, you know, there is negativity, but, you know, just the fact of listening to everybody and approaching it in a manner that, well, I could use this for an example. Somebody trying to get a land use permit and they just get mad because, and nobody wants to listen. And because they have a beef in the past or something. And then you just come in and you put it in a different perspective to where that they can understand it, or put it in different terms and reason with them a little bit. But then, you know, in the long run, it all works out to where they're happy again, you know. You don't, and, you know, obviously there's decisions that we have to make as a whole, which is better for the whole city as a whole versus just one individual. I guess that's how I look at it. I think is taking all the information that people give me and try to make it as good as it can be for them. Yes. Put it in different perspective, different ways. You know, there's times where if they have a big problem, and to make them understand or try to get them to understand, invite them into the office and into the city hall and sit down with them and explain whatever issues they're having. And, well, this is how it works, whether it's on the budget or land use or anything. So just be open and in a manner that if you don't understand something, let us explain it to you so you can understand it and see how, and maybe that'll help.
Anybody else?
I would add that most importantly, to be in the public interest is for all of us to put our own egos aside and realize that I might not agree with you, but I do not want to see you fail.
Good point. Anyone else? Yay.
Let's hear what you have to say, Christina.
You want to know what I want to? Oh my goodness. I've talked too much tonight already. You know, when I came to this job, I had no idea what it was going to be like to serve the public. Not in this venue. I'd worked in retail management for almost 20 years. So I knew what it was like to work for the public as it was, but not in the public sector, in the private sector. And they're two totally different animals, but they're not. You're still there to serve somebody for whatever that means. And sometimes servicing people means compromise. And sometimes servicing people means no compromise. But you have to be able to take your knowledge and be able to explain it or present it to the person that you're with so that they understand both sides of the situation, not just theirs, but yours too, so that that compromise can be met, whether that person's coming more towards your side or you're going more towards their side. And acting in the public interest to me means that maybe Nick and Cassie don't get their fence rebuilt, but we did the best we could with what we had with the resources, so they got their fence built the first time. You know, we took into the situation and we took the situation where they didn't get their fence built the first year they applied for a permit. So I didn't charge them the second time when they came out and it was not done yet. There's a little give, there's a little take. And in some aspects, that's how the world is. I mean, my son doesn't get to sit online for 24/7. He has to do some chores. That's how the world works. We don't get everything that we want. And sometimes working in the public interest means compromise.
Very good. I like it.
So it is 9:09, Rudy. Would you guys like to adjourn?
I would love to.
I would move to adjourn.
If you
I'll
like this,
second
we
the
can do it next month too.
No,
Sorry.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I liked it.
Okay. That way you guys work together. You know? I mean, I know you guys don't get to say everything you want to say, but this way you might have some better understanding of where Paige is coming from versus where Jason's coming from versus Max. You know?
You told me I couldn't use those words.
Not until we adjourn.
All right, I got a first and a second to adjourn.
At
Everyone say
9
aye.
p.m. Thank you guys. Thank you for getting through all this with me. I hope to the Lord that the YouTube thing worked, because I can't see it happening in the background. I just know it's streaming. So cross your
It did
fingers.
work.
It did?
I pulled it up on my cell phone and checked it periodically to see if it was working. I was the only viewer, but it worked.
Well, it'll be there if anybody wants to view it again. So
Yeah.
there we go. Okay, wonderful. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Good night.